environment, 4 new mining projects in British Columbia, Canada, are moving forward despite the fact that there is a risk that the mines could contaminate waterways both in British Columbia and Alaska. Alex Mihailovich is in Toronto with the story tonight. Alex, look, we know that there was a disaster with a similar mine in the area just a couple of years ago. What was the effect of that, the history of that, and are these mines any different if they move forward with this?
Yeah, the interesting thing here is, the words Mount Polley. Do you remember Mount Polley? Because I sure as heck don't. This just happened a couple of years ago. It was the biggest Canadian mining disaster in history. Now, I was an anchor at the time. I did the news, and I know that I might have mentioned this for a moment, but it's one of those things that just kind of got through the news and nobody really talked about it. When I talk about massive disaster, this is nearly 7 billion tons of slurry and water that was in a tailings dam and that basically broke and came out of this tailings dam, which was at a gold and a copper mine in central British Columbia. Now, from that, I mean, there was enough environmental devastation that people didn't talk about for some reason that happened there. I mean, drinking water for Native communities in the area. These aren't highly populated areas, but it's hundreds, if not in the low thousands of people that lost their drinking water for a period of time, as well as the fish stocks in that area. There's photographs of fish, of salmon with skin falling off. So there's arsenic in here. There were hundreds of tons of arsenic, actually, and that's highly poisonous, as we all know. So the effects are something that people never really talked about. Even 2 years later, we really don't know the devastation in that area. Now, moving north towards Alaska, we're talking about 4 new mines, and the tailings ponds in some of these mines are up to 27 times bigger than the mine that we saw at Mount Polley, which means if something goes wrong, this could be a much even greater disaster. And not only for Canada and British Columbia, but we're right next to Alaska. So the people of Alaska right now are a little perplexed. They want to know why these projects are going through and why the same type of dams are being used when we know that they're dangerous. So there's been a lot of talk between the two countries, between Canada and the United States, more between Alaska and British Columbia, the province and the state. And hopefully moving forward, something would happen. But we're not really seeing too much of that. No, not really positive maneuvering.
No, and seeing that if something goes wrong, both British Columbia and Alaska could be affected, as you said. Have those governments done anything to stop another disaster from happening? I mean, what preventive measures are being made right now, if any?
Well, they have some or I should say non-governmental organizations that have gone in and basically said, this should not be done the way it's being done. I know in the province of Quebec, for example, you would not be able to do what you're doing in British Columbia with a mine. Now, talking about the borders there between Alaska and British Columbia, we're talking about some of the most pristine areas of the whole entire world, the cleanest drinking water you'd think, and some of the areas that are the most untouched. And we're talking about these mega mines being put there. The governments, they sat down together at the beginning, or I should say at the end of 2015, they signed off on an agreement where they'd be testing water together. But that's about it. That's about the end of it. There's no real maneuvering and banning this type of practice, or at least making sure that there's best practices being put into place. And that's what NGOs are saying right now. We have to make sure that best practices are put into place so that we don't see disasters like this happening. And as you know, Alaska is rich in salmon. The fisheries there are very dependent on that industry.
Yeah.
And for something like this to go down, I mean, you do not want to have toxic fish. We're already having issues with PCBs in salmon. Arsenic, I mean, come on. It's really a scary prospect.
Alex Mihailovich reporting tonight from Toronto. Thanks for joining us. If you're a wine drinker,